You're listening to the Yoga Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Land. This podcast brings you information and resources to enhance the therapeutic effects of your practice based on a deeper understanding of anatomy, physiology, and the integration of modern science and research with traditional practices and experiences. Join me and my co-hosts Tiffany Cruikshank and Katya Bach as we dive into all things yoga, research, and wellness. Hello and welcome, or welcome back to the Yoga Medicine Podcast. There are plenty of misconceptions and misunderstandings about yoga teacher training, both amongst those who enroll and in the general yoga population. So today's conversation aims to explore some of those areas of confusion and hopefully generate some clarity. Joining me is returning guest Dana Diament. She is a yoga studio owner, a yoga medicine therapeutic specialist, founding teacher on Yoga Medicine Online, and lead teacher of the Yoga Medicine 200-hour teacher training program, which has both completely online and hybrid online in-person options running this year. So, without further delay, let's dive into yoga teacher training with Dana Diament. Hi, Dana. We are here to talk teacher training today. Ooh.
Let's get into it, Rachel.
Yes.
Juicy topic.
It is a juicy topic because I feel like there are so many misunderstandings in people who are thinking of doing teacher training and in the yoga population in general that I think it's worth having a nice conversation to kind of tease apart some of those misunderstandings and to shed a bit more light on them.
Yeah, I agree. So it's definitely one of those things that you don't know until you know.
Mhm.
So let's change that.
Yes. And I think we've had a bit of a brainstorm in advance about some of the myths and misunderstandings that we've come across, and they seem to fit into three pretty neat buckets. And the first one is, who is the person that should do a yoga teacher training? What's the right, in inverted commas, kind of person to do a yoga teacher training? And I imagine you probably hear the same things that I hear is you've got to be young, you've got to be super fit, you've got to be super flexible, you've got to be able to do all the fancy poses, or, pick your basket of characteristics that you think belong. You've got to be super spiritual, or you need to be meditating for 3 hours a day on a cliff top, wearing a matching two-piece with, pipe music playing in the background, whatever your bundle of misconceptions are. So what
Mhm.
does this one bring up for you?
I relate to this one personally because I think it stopped me from uh, it stopped me definitely. It took me a while to get over my own feelings of like I'm not good enough and I'm going to get there and I'm not going to fit in or I won't belong or I'm going to be I'm going to be really embarrassed or I'm just going to want to leave on day one kind of feelings the insecurities. And it was definitely the advanced poses, like thinking that my practice wasn't far enough along or that I couldn't do a handstand or even do the splits. I remember thinking like you have to be able to do the splits. And the other one for me was meditating, that you had to be able to meditate for an hour and that you had this amazing, you know, consistent meditation practice that you got up every day. And the first thing you did in the morning every day before you did anything else was sit there and meditate for an hour. And I remember I had to really go like, it's okay. You don't have to do those things to sign up.
I agree. And if you are somebody who can do handstand and do the splits, and you are somebody who meditates for an hour before you do anything, great, fantastic. But they're not prerequisites for doing a yoga teacher training. And you also mentioned a couple of others that I thought were really important. Like you've got to be an extrovert. You've got to be a people
Mhm.
person. Thank goodness you don't have to be, or I would not be teaching. You've got to be, really comfortable
Funny.
standing up in front of people and talking. You've got to be funny, or you've got to be, ultra serious and really thoughtful and yeah, whatever you have in your mind of what the yoga teacher trainee should be, the reality that both of us have experienced is you can probably throw that away
Mhm.
because all ages, all sizes, all walks of life, all cultural backgrounds and religious backgrounds, all physical ability levels, all personality types are not just welcome, but I think necessary. Because if you want to create an experience for students that's varied, you need the teachers to be varied too.
Yeah, and I think when you do show up to a yoga teacher training, you do meet a variety of people and all different kinds of personality types, and you don't have to be that, bubbly, charismatic, ultra friendly, funny person. You can be more serious, more introverted, whatever. You could be whoever you are. And I think
Mhm.
that, what I love about our teacher training program, the yoga medicine one, is watching the students actually go through this transformation of acceptance and going, "Oh, I can be myself when I
Mhm.
teach. I don't have to change myself, or I don't have to be like, this person that I really admire." Um, yeah, I can say those, awkward, goofy things, or play my loud music, or whatever it is that, makes them
Leave long
do
periods
that.
of silence. We
Yeah.
talk about this a lot with the teacher trainees, don't we? About there being a sort of spectrum in terms of energy and kind of level of volume and enthusiasm that you bring to teaching. And everyone, I think, needs to have access to some variety so that when there are moments in the practice that you want to be a little bit more quiet or thoughtful, you can turn the dial down. And when you want things to be a little bit more invigorating or motivating or energizing, you can turn the dial up. But we've all got the spectrum starts and finishes in different places. We don't want to turn out a whole bunch of yoga robots. If you're naturally a little more even keel in your energy, that's fine. That's great. People will be drawn to that. We'll still be aiming to teach you some skills that give you some options within your range, but you don't have to be the same as the person on the other side of the spectrum who's full of energy and enthusiasm and puts a lot of pizzazz into their speech. You just need to find your voice, and for each of us that will be unique.
Yeah, and it's important, as you said, there's so many different styles of yoga, that are out there, and each one, like you can think of yin yoga, for example, is going to somebody who's more calm might be a really great yin yoga teacher, right? Or if you think about a really dynamic vinyasa class versus a more like evening, slow flow, chill, you're going to want different vibes. And some of us gravitate towards more of that dynamic, vibrant, really, a louder, more booming voice versus someone who naturally speaks more slowly and more softly and more calmly, right? And those are reflections of our personalities. So and everybody comes to yoga for a different reason. They need something different out of the practice, whether that's kind of more broadly speaking or even just day to day. There's some days where like, oh, this person, this teacher has that nourishing aspect that I really want today. And tomorrow, maybe I just want to go to that person who's going to give me that boost and pep talk kind of vibe. So I think it is really important that we're not turning out these yoga teacher robots, but that we give people the space to explore and discover through the training program. Like, what are my natural gifts? What are my natural strengths? And I always just say, like, let's focus on that, on your natural abilities, rather than trying to, work on your weaknesses. And obviously, at some point, we need to make sure that your skills are up to par,
Yeah.
and we want to create that really great foundation. But in terms of the flavor of your class,
Mm.
like, be yourself.
I love that because that's truly the only thing that you'll be able to do sustainably. I've tried on a bunch of different hats. When I was quite new to teaching, I covered a lot of classes and I would always go to the teachers' classes to get a feel for what their flavor, I love that phrase, what their flavor is, what their style is and mood is. And I would try to do my version of that when I covered their class so that it was a sort of, you've come for something really energetic and upbeat. I'm going to be my more energetic and upbeat self. You've come for something that's a little more serious. I will aim to be my, steadier, more serious self. And it was a great way for me to sort of explore my edges and to figure out what cost the most energy versus what felt the most natural. And for me to teach, 17 classes a week or 20 classes a week, for me to teach for 10 years or 12 years or however long it is, there's no way I could spend all of my time being something I'm not. I really needed to figure out what comes from me the most easily and naturally, what requires the least effort in terms of delivery, not in terms of, planning for the class and paying attention when I'm there. You've got to be able to find your voice and teach to that, because there's no other way that a long-term role as a teacher is going to be sustainable. You'll burn yourself out.
I think everyone can relate to that point. Like, it's exhausting not being yourself. You can even
Yeah.
think of, like, if you're in a social situation and you're just not being yourself. I think everyone can relate to this, I think, on some level, of just that feeling of getting home and just being like, "Oh my god, I'm so exhausted." And the same thing happens when you teach. If you're constantly trying to be something that you're not, because you have a certain, like, I think going back to the point that we're trying to make is that you think you need to be a certain kind of person to be a
Mhm.
yoga teacher, and and that's exhausting to try to fit into that picture that you have in your head, rather than, like, when I one of the things that, my current business partner at the yoga studio said that she loved about me was when I first met her, I said to her, "Look, I eat meat, I drink alcohol, and I curse, and that's me, so that's who you're getting into business with." And she was
You
like,
deal with
"Great."
it or not. Yeah, I do think that's really important, because we haven't even talked about the idea that you've got to be, a peace loving vegan, which, again, if you are peace loving, great. I love peace too. If you're vegan, good for you. I appreciate that level of commitment to people's values. I think that's wonderful. But you still have to be who you are. And like you, I eat meat. I like coffee. I swear like a sailor. And so, for me not to do those things would require a lot of effort that would make the job unsustainable over the long term.
Yeah.
You can do anything for a week, but I do think a really important phase of teacher training is kind of testing things out and figuring out, what are my strengths? What are the things that I can kind of draw on and
Mhm.
lean into? And sure, what are my weaknesses? I'm going to work on them a little to make sure that I've got a well rounded skill set, but where's my comfort zone so that I
Yeah.
know where I can stand and sort of stretch myself from?
And I think one of those skills, you mentioned already, that I want to bring up again is that, getting up in front of a group of people and the public speaking aspect of it, which many people probably don't do in their, let's say, current jobs or day-to-day lives. So it can be, or they haven't done it, they haven't stood up to, like, talk in front of people since maybe they were in school
Mhm.
and, forced to deliver this, speech. But it's, I think teaching yoga is so different to that. You don't have to do a dharma talk, a philosophy talk at the beginning, and it could be more about the instruction, which I think is really different than what people probably have in their minds as public speaking. And everyone that we've seen, that we've trained, the transformation from the beginning to the end, like, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And again, it's something that should be emphasized quite a lot in a teacher training program, that opportunity to just get the words out of your mouth.
Yes.
And I was really one of those people I was terrified of standing up in front of a group of people. And when I share that now, people don't believe me. People that have been to my yoga class, I suppose, they don't believe me. And I'm like, no, it's really true. I have this very vivid memory. I was in Brooklyn. I was just getting really serious about yoga. It would have been like 2009, and the teacher walked in the room and she just had this presence about her, and she started talking from the moment she walked in the room, and everyone just straight away just, like, sat up and listened. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I could never do that.
Oh, I love that story. That's what my teacher trainer was like. He was a man with enormous personal magnetism and charisma. And when he spoke, people would listen. And believe me when I tell you that I have to turn the music up as loud as it goes to get my students to shut up and listen to me at the beginning of class. Yes, Millbrook, I'm talking about you. So you don't have to have this immense personal magnetism. You don't have to have this, politician style charisma, because the key of it is it's not a performance, it's a
Right.
practice. And really, the only words that need to come out of your mouth are those that invite people into the practice and create a container for some inquiry and exploration. And you might be surprised how little you actually need to say to get that
Yeah.
job done. It can actually be
Yeah.
much less a kind of presentation and more just step this foot forward, ground down here, hug in here, rise up. Now, feel your breath.
And I think too, these days, what people are looking for more often than not is someone who will hold that space for them to give themselves permission to back off
Mhm.
and be curious and explore. Does this feel good today? Does that feel good today? Just I think it's interesting actually in that sense of reflection, like people are wanting permission to be themselves, right? So the more that you give yourself permission to be yourself as you stand up there as a yoga teacher, that's what's going to have people gravitate towards you. That's what's going to build your class. And you do that as you give them choice, as you know that, let them know that you're there for them and in whatever words you choose to say. And then you don't need to be this incredible, like, you don't have to be super duper eloquent or poetic or metaphorical, or you could use quotes that other people said if you want to bring that element into your class. So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of reflecting on just this interesting mirroring that is what really makes that yoga class so gives it that magnetism.
Yeah. I couldn't agree any more vigorously. I'm nodding my head so firmly it's going to fall right off. You've hit the nail on the head. For both of us, and I think for a lot of teachers, that's really the experience that we're looking for, is to create a space where people can be more of themselves and take away all the layers of should and shouldn't and expectation and agenda, and just be whatever they need to be today. And you can't facilitate that experience if you're simultaneously trying to be somebody else. Of course, you model that by being that yourself. And, there's a fragment of a quote floating around in my mind that when you shine, you give others permission to do the same. Like, that is
Mm.
so true. People always learn more by feeling and observing than they do by just listening to what you say. So I think you've expressed that beautifully.
Oh, well, thanks, Rachel. So yeah, I guess coming back to the yoga teacher training part of it is that I think the same thing is true. It's like that training is like a little microcosm of the yoga classroom. Um, and in that same way, it's like pick a training where you feel that you can just be yourself and that you can shine because of who you are and you don't have to change yourself to try to fit in.
Yeah, and I think that gets me to a sort of more logistical one. We've talked about the sort of bundle of personality traits or lifestyles or behaviors that people seem to think a yoga teacher trainee should have. I think another one that comes up is, or if I'm going to do teacher training, then I should be the person who lives for yoga and it's all I do and I don't do anything else and I want to teach full time. And there are a lot of people going into teacher trainings who don't even know if they want to teach, and if they do, don't know if they want to teach full time, and they also surf or rock climb or mountain bike, or they're really passionate about music or painting or whatever. And I think
Mm.
it's also really important to say that yes, yoga needs to be something that you're excited about and passionate about and have received benefits from and want to share, but it doesn't need to be your only, because there'll be plenty of students for whom they just come, they want to do something that makes them feel good, and then they leave and focus on a million other things in their lives.
Mhm.
So it's okay that you would mirror that for them too.
Yeah, they come for stress relief. They come for recovery, days between all their other activities. They come even to just do something with a friend as a social activity in a way. There's so many different reasons why people come. Um, before it leaves me, I do want to say that uh, you don't like. There's no such thing as being too old or too young.
Yeah.
I think as well, just to kind of finish off that point from before, there's so much that you can bring in either end of that spectrum. Um, and yeah, this bit, I remember when I did my teacher training that the it it was a very tight-knit studio and community, so you kinda knew, well, I did, I would say, not everyone, but there was a sense that you knew the people who were generally successful at this community had also been dancers or gymnasts
Mm,
or were already in some kind of teaching some kind of movement modality. And so, I came in as a graphic designer with, sat at a desk, had my limitations in terms of my physical practice. Um, Great body awareness, though, could learn things really well and easily. But I remember thinking, like, that I didn't live and breathe, movement or yoga philosophy, even though I was really passionate about it. But I just, yeah, it wasn't really my jam up to then. And thinking that I was just not going to be able to get a job where I wanted to because, like, I didn't have that sense of living and breathing. And I'm glad that I was wrong about that.
yeah. And I do
Yeah.
think maybe things were different 20 years ago. There were potentially more limited teaching opportunities, but these days, there are as many options for teaching as there are teachers. You can teach people at work, your colleagues. You can teach people at your community group or at a gym or at a senior center or in conjunction with your running group or your squash or racquetball club. There's so many different ways. You could specialize in just yoga for multiple sclerosis, or there's so many ways that you can blend the things that you are passionate about outside of yoga with your drive to share what you've benefited from in yoga, that there really isn't a single pathway the way perhaps there was some element of truth that there used to be. If you were a 25-year-old ex dancer, there might have been an easier pathway for you to teach classes in a studio and then run retreats and then get involved in teacher trainings. I really don't think it's like that these days, especially out in the real world. There are so many different ways to teach and so many different teachers to fill that space, to fill those needs.
I agree. And I think there's just so much more yoga being offered. There's,
Mm.
at the rock climbing gym, there's probably yoga, or there's yoga at the beach or the life surfing club. Um, and online. And I think, like, those sort of niches, one, those things make you really relatable because people are like, oh, she's into what I'm into, or he's
Mm.
into what I'm into. And there's that sense of connection, which it goes a long way to make people feel comfortable. And again, that sense of, like, magnetism without you being this, radiating,
Ah,
leaking, dripping in
leaking
charisma,
awesomeness.
leaking awesomeness. Um,
Sounds kind of unhygienic. I don't know if I want to be leaking awesomeness.
But, I think one, like, as I said, it's that sense of relatability and connection straight away. But also from a business perspective, it gives you that niche and it helps you stand out if you do decide, and you don't have to, but if you do decide that, these are, like, the certain groups of people that you want to teach because you understand them and you know what their needs and wants are. So I think it's really beneficial these days because we have all these different options, especially if you go online, you can reach people from very far away who are interested in that same yoga, for the same reasons that you are. So yeah, I think if you take that pressure off of yourself needing to teach full time, or even part time, or even thinking that you need to teach 10 classes a week or 5 classes a week, but allow yourself to go, like, well, I maybe just want to teach one to my coworkers, or I don't want to teach any. I just want to do
Or
this
I
for
want to do
myself.
one weekend a month with me and my girlfriends.
Yeah.
Whatever your thing is.
And you'll be surprised that when you get to the yoga teacher training, you'll find many more people like that too, who are not even sure that they want to teach, that they're just
Mm.
there for themselves, or they're not. Of course, there's going to be people there who do want to make that full switch, but I think most people are not there to make that full switch.
Or at least they have a question mark in their mind. Maybe I'd like to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think hopefully that kind of sums up if you think a yoga teacher training needs to be X, you're probably wrong. So go as your lovely self with that bundle of experiences and skills and needs. And chances are you will find students that fit that need what you're offering. And I guess the sort of subtext to all of this is you are not going to be the teacher for every student. You can't be. That's not possible. So
Mhm.
set that aside and just see if you can figure out who you are, what interests you, where the practice meets you in a way that, really fills your needs most closely, where you feel most driven to share that with others. What are your skills? Where do you stand most comfortably? And see if you can build something from there, if that's what you want to do. But set all of those expectations to one side and just be in the experience with curiosity.
Yeah, and if you just want to be there for yourself, if you just want to learn more about yoga, I think too, there's something really powerful that happens in the yoga teacher training if you don't want to teach, because you just immerse yourself in something that's so deep, extensive. There's going to be a transformation. There's going to be a shift, even if it's just a deeper connection to yourself, and you might be able to get clarity on like a different kind of purpose. You might
Mm,
know, like, actually, I don't want to teach yoga, but what I really love is XYZ, or
yeah.
uh, that being able to express your own needs and desires better, or
And
to
I
have
think
that
this,
greater self-awareness. I mean, those things are such powerful, invaluable gifts of a yoga teacher training journey, whether you become a teacher or not.
yeah, and that kind of leads us onto the second bundle of misunderstandings and misconceptions, which are about the training itself. And one of the ones that I suggested was people, I think, reasonably regularly go into teacher trainings thinking that it's all about personal transformation. And in my experience, you'll get some whether you want to or not, because learning any skill as an adult is can be challenging and confronting and forces you to ask and answer questions about who you are and what's important to you. But at the end of the day, most trainings are going to have at least some aspect of technical skill development. We need to teach you how to get words out of your mouth at a reasonable enough pace that you can move bodies through space, whether that's quickly in something like a flow practice or more slowly in something like a yin practice. So while there is an element of self transformation, for most teacher trainings, that's not the primary goal. What are your thoughts on that one?
I agree in that I think most trainings are not trying to get you in the door because they, offering you this incredible transformation. But I think if you really commit yourself to this process, I think for most adults, like maybe the younger people that come to yoga teacher trainings, school and university, college, whatever, isn't that far away. So they still maybe remember a time when they were this like dedicated and studying and showing up. But once
Information
you get,
sponges.
yeah, once you get further and further away from that, and you're fitting it in amongst your full-time job and your family, it's a pretty big deal to commit to a training of 200 hours, especially if you're fitting it into 3, 6, 9 months, let's say.
Mm,
So just I think that, and it goes back, I just keep thinking about like the dedication and the tapas, like it just goes back to yoga, really. Like I think any process that you dedicate yourself to consistently and you keep showing up, because it does get hard, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It does get hard. There, you do doubt yourself.
mhm.
You will question, like, what am I doing? Can I do this? Can I even be here? And then you go through that process and you keep showing up. The- I think, like, let's say 99% of the time, there will be a transformation within yourself. Are you gonna, heal all your personal issues with your mom and your dad and your ex and whatever? No, that's not what we're talking about here. That's
Mhm.
not the transformation that I have in my mind. I mean, you might be inspired to go and make other aspects of your life better and seek that help, possibly. I don't know. But I think on a personal level, on maybe just the way that you show up in life to your family, your job, your commitments, I just can't, I don't see how it doesn't bleed over.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, anything you invest time in, energy, effort, anytime you're sort of exposing yourself to learning new skills and the potential of failure, which, is part of it. Anytime you're learning something new, you're not going to get it right every time. Can't help but be transformational. But that's probably not the best reason to go into a yoga teacher training. Well, gosh, is that even true? It's definitely not the primary thing I would be looking for going into a teacher training or expecting, because at the end of the day, whatever style of teacher training you're going to, there'll be a certain amount of information that they need to convey to you and that you need to take in. There'll be a certain amount of technical skill that you'll need to develop, that they'll need to see you develop. And through that process, you can't help but change. But as you said, the trainers aren't there to help you heal your relationships or to, find inner peace. Definitely for me, that's well outside my scope. So at least don't come to our training looking purely for personal transformation. Maybe we can say that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I do see plenty of teacher trainings that are marketed and sold. That is the selling point. This is life changing and come discover who you really are. And yeah, whatever it is that you're trying to change about yourself. Like I think if that's what you want, if that's why you want to do a yoga teacher training, like make sure that that's in the marketing, make sure that that's what they're selling.
And that the people are qualified to guide you through that experience. I mean, mine definitely was transformational. I went from working full time in a minimum wage job, in fact, multiple minimum wage jobs, to teaching full time within a couple of years. That was life changing, but it wasn't because I was getting talk therapy from my teacher trainers. It was just because
Yeah.
it was a phase in my life where I was very deliberately assessing what I wanted, what I believed in, what my values were, and trying to shape things around that. So, as a byproduct, 100%. But
And I think really important too, just to add on, is like if you're looking for that, is really look into who's running this teacher training program. Look at their qualifications. I
mm,
love what you just said before, as in like, that's not your qualifications, that's not in your wheelhouse. And it's not really in mine either. I mean, even though I love philosophy and I love talking about life and, sort of motivation and goals and dreams and all that kind of stuff. It's not what we're really there to do. We're there to teach you how to teach yoga. We're there to teach you about anatomy. We're there to share the ancient wisdoms and philosophies and techniques.
to the
Um,
extent that we understand them, which for
yeah,
me, in that bucket of ancient wisdom and philosophy, is not very deeply. So, yeah, which kind of leads on to the next misunderstanding, which is, all yoga teacher trainings are the same. And they're really not, even if they're Yoga Alliance registered and they have to meet certain percentages of hours, certain numbers of hours on any given bucket of topics. Even the same bucket of topic can be delivered in really different ways and meet the same hourly commitment. So every teacher training is different. It's going to have a different emphasis, a different focus. The instructors will be different. The feel will be different. The aims and end goals will be different. So it is really important to do a bit of research and to get a feel for
great.
how do you resonate with the trainers? What do you think of their qualifications? What do you think of their communication style and their approach in life?
I get this question all the time, and people email me and say, "I'm thinking of doing a yoga teacher training program. Which one do you recommend?" And my first question back to them is like, "Well, what are you into? What part of
Yes.
yoga really excites you?" it, think about like you're going to be doing 75 hours of yoga practices. What kind of practices do you want to do you want to sit there and chant and meditate and do breath work? Do you want to flow a lot? Do you want to learn arm balances? Do you want to get strong? Like what interests you? And I think it's so important to do your research and really look into who are the lead teachers. What are they into? What are their classes like?
Mhm.
Do I want to sit in a room with that person for 200 hours or those people? I think
Yeah.
it's like, it is really important to choose your training based on what you want to further dive into.
Yeah, because there isn't a right or a wrong. It's not better if you're doing the splits or arm balances. It's not better if you're chanting and meditating for hours. But those two experiences are very, very different. So you want to know that you're getting what fuels you in the practice, what you place priority on from people that you'll be willing to spend a couple of 100 hours with. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And, looking into how many hours of practice teaching, if you want to teach, how ready will I be to teach when I finish
Yes.
this program is going to be very like reflective on, where are the hours spent in the program? Is
Yeah.
there, do we do lots of practice teaching? How long is my exam session? What length of class am I going to be teaching in the practice teaching sessions? Questions
What
like
am I
this, I think.
assessed on even? Am I
Yeah.
assessed on something?
Yeah.
What are my options to get coaching or feedback? And if you are looking for that sort of journey of personal transformation primarily, you probably don't want to be spending half your time practice teaching. If you are somebody who wants to build the technical skill set required to teach, that's going to be really important. So doing a little bit of digging into not just the bullet points of things that your teacher training offers, but how, what's the focus, what's the emphasis, is going to be really important to you having your expectations met and the experience being something that you derive value from.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I had these questions actually before I'm
Same.
really pleased with my teacher training journey,
Same.
like 100% pleased, but they're really good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you can be lucky, and we were both pretty lucky that we stumbled into trainings that were relatively time tested and pretty rigorous and relatively well rounded. But I've also spoken to a bunch of people who stumbled into trainings that weren't well rounded, or at least not to what they expected from it, not to the value that they were looking for, not the outcomes that they were seeking from it. So it is important to do your research. Obviously, it's got to fit your budget, it's got to fit your requirements for timing. But yeah,
Those shouldn't be reasons to choose a teacher training.
yes.
It's not about, oh, I'm free in June and I'd like to go to Bali. Great. But I wouldn't put those at the top of the list. I'm going
No,
to look
not
at
if
the
you're really looking for a
curriculum.
training. Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
looking for a journey of personal transformation or a kind of formalized retreat, sure, maybe. But again,
Something interesting to do while you take a month off.
yeah,
It'll definitely
yeah.
be interesting and fun.
Which kind of leads me to the next misconception that I've definitely come across in a couple of people of, oh, it'll be fun and easy. Teacher training sounds super fun and easy. I mean, I guess compared to, I don't know, giving birth to a human or having surgery or something, it is fun and easy in the sense that it's something you're interested in. There's no pain involved. But learning anything as an adult has its challenges.
It does. And again, it's a lot of hours
Mhm,
of sitting, listen, sitting is possibly on the floor or in front of a computer. If you're doing it online, it's a
mhm.
lot of video content for those that are doing it online. And I do think people think like, oh, it'd be way better than my day job. It'll be a nice break from sitting and doing my desk job potentially, or whatever else it is that you do. Maybe. And it is really enjoyable, but it is everybody gets to that point of oh, can I keep going? Do I have any more juice left in my brain?
Yeah.
Um,
'Cause at the
and
end of the
it's a
day,
lot on
you've
your
gotta take in a
body
lot of
too.
information. Yeah, you've
I
gotta
think
take in a
people
lot of
don't
information in your
realize.
body, you've gotta build new muscle awareness, new skill sets in your body, and you've gotta take in a lot of theoretical information in your mind. You've got to build new, I keep calling them technical skills. Teaching is a technical skill, how to communicate efficiently and concisely, how to use your voice as a tool, how to use props and demonstrations as a tool, how to pull a sequence together, how to vary it to the people that are in front of you. All of this stuff, you might know some of it already, or you might have strengths in some directions already. If you are that 25-year-old ex dancer, maybe the physical side of sequencing will come easily, but you might not have a language around anatomy, or you might not have a language around philosophy. Everyone's going to hit points where it's just about the tapas, the discipline of just putting your head down and doing the work and showing up, and it not being enjoyable in the moment, but being really satisfying over the long term.
Yeah, and as we say in our program, trust the process, which is
Mhm.
really important. So hopefully you're choosing a program where you can also trust the process.
It sounds a little creepy. Every time I say it, I'm like, oh, I don't know. The more often I say it, the more creepy it sounds, but it is true. There's a big picture. We're going to challenge you in different ways
Yeah.
throughout, and some of those challenges will be confronting. I do feel like it's difficult to really build your skill level in something without having the potential of not doing well, of doing something and screwing up, not doing as good a job as you wanted, or stumbling over your words, or freezing and not being able to say anything. That potential of not doing well in the moment, it has to be there for you to grow, for you to be out of your comfort zone enough to learn some new skills. And that in the moment is not that fun. It can be upsetting. You can finish feeling kind of like, oh, I did really badly. I wanted to do well. I did really badly. Damn it. This matters to me. That's part of the process of growing and learning and evolving and developing and building new skills and figuring out what you are good at and what does come naturally and where you do need to put in a little bit more work.
Yeah, and people that obviously follow it through to the end, it's such an accomplishment. You're so proud of yourself.
Yeah, and you should be because it's
You should
hard.
be.
Which I guess is
And
the next
it's
kind of
so
basket of
rewarding.
misconceptions, which is
But I just want to make the point before we move on because
mm,
we don't want to scare people off. It is so rewarding.
yeah,
And I think it's one of the most rewarding things that you can do as an adult. And to anyone that, asks me like, should I do a yoga teacher training? And my answer is yes. Like if
yeah.
you're into yoga and you want to learn more about yoga, it's an incredible time.
I couldn't agree more. That's always my advice too, is absolutely you should. If you're asking the question, the answer is yes. But there's more questions to come after that, which isn't just like, well, shall I go to Bali in June? But what am I looking for? What do I need from it? Where do I want the focus to be? And the more due diligence you do beforehand, the more useful the process will be, the more it will get you closer to where you want to be at the end of the program. And there'll be some real high points, there'll be some real fun points. But like learning any new skill, it probably won't all be fun and easy. And that's kind of the nature of learning.
Yes.
The more we understand about learning, the more we understand how making mistakes, doing things wrong and getting that visceral feedback of, that's not how I wanted it to go. That's actually when the brain becomes more malleable to change. So it's a process. And hopefully the training that you're doing has been time tested enough, been kind of developed enough that there is a process plan, that they are guiding you through varied challenges, some of which you'll just fly through, flying colors, some of which might catch you up. You might stumble, but that's how you learn. And that's how you get to the end with a really solid skill set and a decent idea of who you are as a teacher.
Yeah. Well said. Agree.
Yeah. Hmm. So the last basket of questions were the sort of myths and misconceptions that come up around what happens at the end of your teacher training,
Mm.
and the kind of idea that when I finish, I'll know everything about yoga, or when I finish, if it's been a good, in inverted commas, training, I won't be nervous about teaching. I'll just be good to go. And I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but I just don't think that's how
Let's
life
burst.
is. Let's burst that bubble. Not going to
100%.
happen. You will
Better
probably still
now
be
than at the
nervous.
end.
True. True.
Well, there's still days where I get nervous
Same.
teaching class, it's
Mhm.
been more than a decade. So I just think it's actually a great sign. It means that you still care
Mhm.
or that you care, to begin with, that it
Yes.
matters to you, like you said, that you want to do a good job. Being nervous it's that sign that you care and that there's something on the line here for you. And we all need that right now in our lives. We need meaning, we need purpose. It makes
Mm.
us feel alive. So, yes, when you get to the end of your yoga teacher training program, there's still more work to do before you go and get a job. You still have to keep practice teaching. You have to find those opportunities to keep building your skills.
Mm. And you will probably still be nervous as you've said, and I couldn't agree more. There are still times that I get nervous, and I take that as a really good sign that there is something at stake. This is important for me. I want people to have a good experience. I want them to leave feeling better than they did when they arrived. And that means that I want to help facilitate that. I want to be present to it. And the day that I'm just phoning that in and kind of checking my phone while I'm teaching is probably the day I should stop and get a different job. Because this is not the kind of job that you can just phone in. You really do need to be present to the people there and have a clear intention of what information you're hoping to convey and what experience you want them to have. And when there's something at stake, there's potential for you to get nervous.
And you have to keep it fresh. You know,
Mm.
you can't just keep teaching the same thing day in and day out, year after year.
Even if you're teaching the same sequence, you still need to be
Yeah,
bringing something fresh to it. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
And I think when you are bringing something fresh to it and there's something new, or you're there's always that little voice in your head, that's like, is this going to turn out the way I want it to turn
This
out?
could
And
go poorly.
this could go poorly. But what you develop over time, I think, is just the skills to deal with those nerves. The more that you teach, you become more professional, and you're able to go, okay, well, I mean, I think it's like you live the yoga.
Mm,
You feel that in your belly, and okay, that's there, but I've got, I can do some breath work at the beginning with
mhm.
them and calm my nerves. And usually as you start to get into it, it gets easier. But yeah, just that sense that, like, almost when you're finished with the teacher training, a whole new journey begins.
100%. And I started off by saying, when I finish the training, I'll know everything about yoga. Absolutely not. It's like any bucket of information that you dive into. Take anatomy, for example. You can't do, 100-hour course in anatomy and know everything. That's why there aren't just general practitioners in medicine. There are people who specialize in one particular kind of nerve cells in the nervous system. You can just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And every aspect of yoga is the same. So, in fact, you may have more questions after your teacher training about what yoga is and what its nature is and what a good class is than you did when you started. And that is the nature of learning, that the more you look at something and the more you know about it, the more you realize you don't know. And often the less sure you become. That's how learning works.
Yeah. Also, not a reason to stop you from teaching if that's what
Oh,
you want
no,
to
God,
do.
no.
There's still plenty that you can share.
Absolutely, because that's the practice nature of it. We always want to come back to, as teachers, what benefit have I taken? Why do I do this? Why do I do breath work to calm me when I'm nervous? Well, I'll share that with my students, and maybe it will be helpful for them. Maybe it will be a tool that they can put in their toolkit. So at the end of the day, even if you're not sure, you know, all of the nitty gritty details, you still know what you feel in your own body. You still know what your experience is. And at the end of the day, that's really all you're qualified to share, no matter
Mhm.
what theory you've amassed through the course of your initial training and future trainings. You're still primarily drawing from what you feel in your bones and what you experience on your mat and off it.
And that's the most powerful, the most effective as well. That's when you're speaking from that truth, that's what your students feel. Your voice changes, the energy feels different in the room. So that's all you need, is to speak from what you know,
Yeah.
from what
But I mean, don't
practice.
talk yourself out of it by thinking, gosh, I thought I'd get to the end of the training and feel really confident in my knowledge. And I now have more questions than I did when I started. That's okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Just think about being in a class and the difference between a teacher saying, I find this breath technique really helpful when I'm feeling nervous or agitated. And then they teach it to you, versus a teacher saying, try this breath practice. Here's what you're going to do. That first scenario for me immediately piques my interest. I'm kind of like, oh, well, let's see if that's true for me. I've been
Mhm.
nervous. I've been agitated. Let's see if this one works for me. Let's see if it helps me. So, yeah, sharing from your own experience will never be wrong. And it's okay if you know that there's a lot more to learn about that topic down the track. Maybe that's something you're going to keep on studying as time goes on. Maybe this is just the beginning of your training journey.
Mm. Yeah, it's just the beginning. And that 200 hours, you had to think of it as the foundation.
Mm,
And that's what you want to focus on. It's just, if you're building a house, you want a sturdy foundation. You want it to be solid. You want it to be something you can, like you just said, like, that you can build on.
mm,
So find that program that gives you that sturdy foundation. And a lot of teachers are ready to teach after 200 hours. I started pretty straight away, I think
same.
maybe a month or two later, and just slowly kept adding more classes. kept studying as well
Kept
pretty straight
practicing.
away. Yeah, kept practicing.
Yeah.
And some teachers are not, or I should say, some people are not ready straight away. And so they might take their time with it, which again, both scenarios are great.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think the key is if you finish teacher training and you don't feel ready to teach, and I mean, some of that can just be your imposter syndrome talking. So I always think it's worth you really questioning that assumption. Am I really not capable of guiding a group of people like my friends or family through a practice, or am I just scared? But if you're really not ready, but you do want to teach down the track, don't leave it too long. Make sure that you're continuing to practice. You're gathering together some colleagues or some friends or family or, people at your running club or whatever, so that you keep training that
Yeah.
muscle. Don't let it go too long, because often the story that people then tell themselves is, oh, and now it's been 6 months since my training. I'm going to have to do a whole nother training before I'm ready to teach again. So do, even after the teacher training, keep challenging your perceptions and your assumptions. Keep opening yourself up to opportunities to practice, because you never know what will come of those.
Yeah. And go for trials or, auditions or whatever it is that, the place where you want to work is offering. Even if you think you might not be ready, I think it's worth going,
Yeah,
get
you'll
that
learn.
feedback. I think that the feedback is so valuable and something that we rarely get as yoga teachers. And so in the beginning of the journey, to have that feedback and to someone say, hey, you're
Mhm.
really, this is working really great, XYZ, but go and do some more practice teaching, come back in 6 months.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just it's great to just have that sense, like, rather than it be in your head,
yeah.
to actually have like a real world reflection of where you're at is really helpful.
And I think instinctively what we want is for people to say, "Oh my god, that was amazing," which, maybe that will happen. But the feedback that's actually more helpful is, "I love the warm up. Your mood, your pace then was beautiful. When we got to the standing flow, it was a little more uneven, or it was a little more irregular." What we actually need is kind of specific. Go back home and work on your sun salutations, or the pace of your standing flow, or the conciseness of your cues when you are moving people from one shape to another, or whatever that thing is. It's not nice to hear, because you want the answer to be perfect. Don't change a thing, you're hired. But that's not how you grow. Tragically, how you grow is, okay, I got to go home and I got to work on my whatever the area was that needed a bit of polish. That's really how you continue to hone your skills and get closer and closer to what you want to do, if that is to teach.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of that does and needs to happen
Hmm.
after yoga teacher training. You
Yeah.
will find you get to the end and there are still things that you need to work on.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, there are still things that I need to work on. I've been teaching for over a decade. Plenty of things that I need to work on. Please don't message me your feedback. I think I know what the things it hurts too much. Don't give me your feedback. No, it's true. Hopefully, if you are a good teacher, this process will go on forever. You will continue to bring in new information, to test out new hypotheses, to learn new things, to work on your weaknesses, to build on your strengths, to find your voice, because your voice will change over time as you change
Mhm.
and your life changes. Gosh, I hope we haven't painted too depressing a picture. Yoga teacher training is amazing. If you're thinking about it, you should do it. But go in with open eyes, ask a bunch of questions, and be willing to put in the work. Anything worthwhile takes work and
Yeah.
dedication.
I think it's really great to be realistic about what it
I
is that
think
you're
so.
undertaking. And I mean, maybe, we come from the more rigorous yoga teacher training program, and both of us are obviously, this is our job, this is our career.
Mm.
So we're coming from that background as well. There are plenty and plenty of programs out there that are more fun and lighthearted and, a bit more of a yoga holiday. Those are out there and we love them too. And
Mm.
those might be the ones that are right for you. Go for it. Enjoy. I mean, I think, more people doing yoga and people immersing themselves in deep study is great for our community, is great for our planet. So I'm all for all the different styles of yoga teacher training programs for sure.
I
Uh,
agree. And maybe that's the
yeah.
best way to sum it up is when we look at that first bucket of misconceptions about who the right yoga teacher trainee is, the answer is there's no right one. If you're interested in teaching, if you're dedicated to the practice and you've learned something from it that you feel drawn to share, then teacher training is for you. And it will be a process of you finding your own unique individual voice and developing good technical skills. So if you think you have to be something, you probably don't, other than just being open to learn. And all yoga teacher trainings are not the same. They're all going to be different. They'll have different focus and emphasis and priorities. So do a bit of research, ask some questions. Maybe you talk to recent graduates of the program to hear what their experience was like. Figure out if it's going to be aligned with your values and priorities and get you where you want to be at the end of the teacher training. And then know that at the end of the teacher training, it's really just the beginning. You're going to have to continue building your skill set. You're going to have to go out there and audition for work or do demo classes at your club or your workplace. It's really just starting, and you'll have a whole bunch more skills to develop over time. But that too can be super fun if it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah. I think I was just thinking about, for me, it took me 4 years from when I went, I want to do a yoga teacher training, to when I actually signed up. And there was a lot of that hesitation around
Mm,
who I need to be and what kind of person teaches yoga, and will I teach, will I not teach, and does it fit into my schedule, and where is it? All those kinds of things that took a while. It takes a while sometimes for all of
mm,
that to align. And I suppose, yeah, part of our motivation is to help people overcome some of those obstacles of,
mm.
should I, shouldn't I sign up for yoga teacher training? And um, if this is the year, that you're like, it's time, I really want to do it, then listen. I think listen to that. I wish I had done mine sooner, is I guess what I'm trying to say. I wish that
Mm.
I didn't get so caught up in, I needed to, be more flexible or stronger, or sit in meditation peacefully for an hour every day. But I think, as you said, it's all part of that the growth that
Mm.
you know, that journey of showing up,
Yeah.
and overcoming your doubts and being guided by your passion and your desire to help. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you're guided by that, if you keep coming back to the why, and to the service, to actually just being of service, and remembering that you've got something to share, and that there are students for every teacher,
You can't go wrong.
you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, we are offering an online only and a hybrid version of the Yoga Medicine 200-hour teacher training this year, a mixture of online and in person. So I'll link to that in the show notes for anyone who feels like maybe this year is the year. But is there anything about that that you want to say as we wrap up?
I'm just so excited that we can offer both of these this year for those. We did the 100% online last year, and we had people sign up who, it has been on their list to sign up for teacher training for so long, but there was no way they could do one in person. So it was the first time we did the yoga medicine completely online, and it was just incredible to connect with these people and guide them through this journey. So it's awesome that we get to offer that again for those that couldn't join us last year, and again for those that can't travel, or need that more flexibility, and to be able to go at their own pace through the program as well. So that's really exciting. And then also equally exciting to have an in-person element. So we have that hybrid version, which will be 150 hours online, and then the last 50 hours in a retreat in that more intensive, immersive environment. So yeah, it's gonna be really wonderful.
Best of both worlds. All right. Well,
Best
I'll link
of
to
both
that in
worlds.
the show notes, and I will also link to the usual links for you of how people can get in touch with you if they want to know more about you and what you do. So let's leave it there. If you're asking the
Perfect.
question whether you should do teacher training, probably the answer is yes.
Excellent. Thanks for the
Thanks,
chat,
Dana.
Rachel.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Yoga Medicine. If you liked the show, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you got something out of this episode, please spread the word and share it with a friend. You can find more information, articles, trainings, and classes at yogamedicine.com. Check us out on social media as Yoga Medicine, or you can email us at info@yogamedicine.com. Thank you for being part of our Yoga Medicine community.
The content of this podcast is not medical advice and is not meant to replace medical care. Please consult your healthcare provider to determine what is best for your unique healthcare needs.